first of all, we would like you to introduce yourself and give us, maybe to the viewers, about who you are and your profession.
I'm Lieven Peters. I'm a lawyer from Belgium, and I'm more than 20 years active as an active practitioner in law, and especially in real estate and real estate M&A law.
Great. Coming to justice system, which is very important in the Gambia. This is your first time coming to the Gambia.
It is my first time here, yes.
And we've seen difference when it comes to law in practice in different countries. Now, in the Gambia, we have a new government that has just come in, and then you've been an experienced person in terms of the law. Tell us the law in relationships to the citizens, which is very important.
In Belgium, it's a clear division of power. You have three separate powers. You have parliament, which makes the laws. You have government, which is supposed to execute the laws. And then you have the court system, who is judging upon the laws or violation of laws. So all those three powers are independent of each other and are the basis of our democracy, parliamentary democracy in Belgium. And I would say it's the most common system in Europe. So there is a clear division, so Parliament cannot interfere with the judicial system, and judicial system cannot interfere with Parliament or with government, the operating executive power.
So importantly, people tend to ask, what is the importance of law within a country? Like many people at a lower level, we won't understand what is the role of the law. We want you to emphasize on how important is the law to a country or a nation.
It is for a nation, it should be the basis. And the basic law or the foundation of the law system would be the constitution, as a result of which the other laws can be enacted and are the result of the constitution. And it should be a vast basis for the whole economy, the whole country to act upon. So honoring and respecting the law is essential so that society can make progress and can evolve into a better society. So it's really, the rule of law is respecting all of the acts of law so that everybody can live in a friendly atmosphere and progress as a society.
Exactly. In the current generation we are living, we've seen governments like individual rulers or leaders, we call them presidents currently, influencing the judicial systems, whereby it's caused unfair game within the system. We call it the political play games, where the government or the president himself influence the law in such a manner that favors him and not the citizen. In Belgium, basically, I want you to explain this context. How does the citizen react to this?
Well, in our system, it should not be possible. Of course, there are some elements which can be questioned because the judges are always nominated by political powers, so you can always suspect that the judge at the time of his nomination could have a certain political preference. But in general, one sees in practice that they act independently, sometimes to the frustration of the politicians who nominated the judge, but we can see that judges can act independently. And it's important also for the citizens to see that everybody within society at least has the clear possibility to be judged equally. So there is no discrepancy between citizen 1, citizen 2. Even people who have a high position still have to abide by the rules and can be judged upon any violation of the rules.
Great. In coming to the relationships of a new government coming in power, where certain rules were maybe made by a previous government, who probably might be a government in terms of a dictator or a government that was so difficult that the citizens don't like. And this change of power occurs. Now, looking at the systems in terms of changing laws that were there before, what process does it take? Because it looks like in our process, it is the president who influences. Now, in another system, in general, you being a law practitioner, we wanted to explain that context whereby some changes of laws were made within the context.
Of course, if a new leadership steps in, first of all, I think it always takes some time to have the dust settled and to have that leadership get into speed of governing a country. So it must be frustrating if leadership changes regularly, but it is like that. It's like you cannot change a ship from a direction in 1, 2, 3. It takes its time to change. Secondly, if we see it, if you compare it to the Belgian system, it's the parliament or the government that takes the initiative to enact new laws. For a citizen, the easiest way is to contact the elected people from its city or region and make a proposal. The parliament members are, let's say, open to initiatives which will be well received by the entire population. So for a citizen, it's even possible to get in touch with the parliament members. So, and if they are open to start writing or making a proposal of law, it's possible. On the other hand, we have the government who, as well, for the well-functioning of the society, sometimes takes initiative to enact new laws. And there, in that process, if it comes from the government, that draft act will need to pass through Parliament as a kind of verification, and you also have an administrative court which will also review both the draft acts from the government and the Parliament, so that there is coherence and there are no, let's say, easy possibilities for a law to be questioned in the Constitutional Court, because every law which violates, let's say, the basic principles can be brought before the constitutional law and will be tested upon its constitutionality.
Exactly. So coming to the same context, we've realized the law which is in relationship to the media. We realized that most of the government restrict the media to disclose certain information by giving them certain limits, which the media asks for free media, where the media can, expose the government at times. But most of the time we realize this in a lot of countries, the government always hold the power of the media. In Belgium, we want to understand the difference between Belgium and some African countries here in Africa.
In Belgium, you have media laws which, as a principle, provide for, let's say, the principle of freedom of speech and so freedom of media, with of course some boundaries. We have to respect, the media has to respect certain rights of individual persons, and the protection of individual persons is higher than persons who are public. And let's say people who act in a government, they are public, so they are more open to the media. And if you look at the organization of the media in Belgium, you have media which is the, let's say, official media, which is subsidized by the government. And next to that, you have the private media, the private TV, private radio, who is not as much subsidized by the government and needs to earn money other ways, but which, let's say, allows a kind of openness in the media world and towards politics, where they can openly discuss elements. Of course, I cannot say that it has not happened in the past, where the government has asked the media to suspend reporting on certain facts for all kinds of reasons. As you may recall, certainly in Belgium in 2016, we had the attacks of ISIS in Brussels. There, the police and the government has asked the media to stop reporting when they were chasing the escaped terrorists.
Okay.
So that's, I would say, a fair reason to ask the media to stop.
So in some circumstances, the government come in and ask the media
Yes.
to understand the basic certain things that they need to abide by, which is very important.
If you are determined, and if you're enthusiastic about something, then you will automatically take hurdles that are there. I can't really say that I think I faced huge problems as a woman. I think it may be different for people in other places. I feel that I was given equal opportunities. We still do have a kind of patriarchal mindset where sometimes you have to emphasize other ways of looking at things, or that networking is more important than having a particular rank. So that might be a female contribution or a woman's contribution to look at networking rather than hierarchies. But I think my advice to young girls and women out there would be, do not be put off by obstacles. Show your enthusiasm. We have this wonderful example of Fatou Dieng, who has become the president of the student union. I think if you're enthusiastic and determined, and the opportunities are there, but you have to persist. And I think if we can set an example, then the next generations should. Writers in their fictional work really show the variation of opinion on this practice, and I think if you look at literature is more about showing the different shades of grey, and politicians have to take a stand. A friend of mine who's from Nigeria has a Nigerian expression which says there are many roads that lead to the market. So yes, decisions from the government are important, but at the same time, health awareness and education, and through literature, making people also aware. I think keeping the dialogue open is the main thing, and maybe with the colonial conflict, this dialogue was not really possible.